What if I told you of a company that operated as a virtual hothouse of untrammeled creativity, where artists of all persuasions could assemble regardless of race, gender, or creed, born only by their boundless abilities, and thrive in an environment of endless competition and incumbent reward, cultivating in the process an entire industry and style of production still very much in evidence today, while spurning the pinko proselytism of others in their chosen field, their owner himself an avowed and inveterate anti-communist? What if I told you everything from cartoons to comics to, yes, Japanese anime all but owe their entire existence to them? And what if I told you the name of that company was Disney? With a superhero film trend now entering its white jumpsuit, girdle, Las Vegas residency phase, and the last few live-action Disney remakes going up like an Oklahoma federal building, if the recent financial news out of Disney were any more dire, Peter Jackson would be shooting it in slow-mo. But how the precise hell did we all get from a Marvel money printer to staring down the barrel of bankruptcy for the second time in as many decades? Disney, as many of you may recall, is not so far removed from their most recent fiduciary dicking. After blowing it with the Black Cauldron in the early 80s, the House of Mouse caught a second wind in the latter half of the 80s with the cinematic success of The Little Mermaid, a success which it sustained through the following decade with Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, and on ad astra. What's more, Disney accomplished this feat, so the corporate rewrite of history goes, by severing ties with former CEO Ron Miller, the very last Disney figurehead with even the faintest fucking familial link to the long-departed Disney himself, and replacing him with a generic Silicon Valley suit, Michael Eisner. All the same, the company appeared poised to power into a new millennium with its financial future near blinding in its brightness. And then Eisner turned out the lights. With the advent of CGI animation and sudden ascent of their pals at Pixar, Disney Animation hit the wall harder than Chrissy Teigen. Their solution? Fire yet another member of the founding family, this time Roy Disney, and if you can't beat him, buy him, acquiring Pixar in 2006. Yet even after Eisner was forced into early retirement in 2005, the company continued to crap the bed for some time thereafter, and bankruptcy and insolvency rumors swirled for the remainder of that decade. New CEO Bob Iger's solution? Buy even harder. The new Disney was a fucking Corpo-phage, devouring first Marvel Comics and later Lucasfilm. And while the latter of those two acquisitions was considered at the time to be the greater coup by far, it was actually Marvel that made the money. That is, until now. Marvel's print division's been a bigger drag than RuPaul for a fucking minute, but with more recent filmic offerings underperforming, as I predicted they eventually fucking would, and Star Wars still unable to achieve success outside a subreddit, Colonel Mustard couldn't find Disney a fucking clue. Worse still is the social engineering aspect. Look, the post-Walt regime has routinely dined on a 5-course meal of its own fucking feet. Hell, Gen Xers of the 90s may recall the Gay Day at Disney World controversy the Christian and family media made a massive deal out of in 1995, leading to no small number of advertisers and sponsors sallying off into the sunset rather than get dragged down by the Big D. You know every verse, chorus, and bridge of this song and dance by now. Controversy emerges, sponsors pull out of endeavor, family groups responsible for said sponsors leaving are called bigots and reactionaries. Slippery slope is repeatedly referred to as a fucking myth, and 8 years later, despite allegedly being a myth, society somehow finds itself bobbing for lady balls at the base of said slippery slope with nary a fucking clue how they even got down there. If you were paying attention to Disney's proselytic tactics in the 90s, the DeSantis Disney saga should be about as surprising as a wine mom with a Xanax prescription.
Last summer, we removed all of the gendered greetings in relationship to our live skills. So we no longer say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We no longer say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We say dreamers of all ages.
I'm here as a mother of 2 queer children, actually, one transgender child, and one pansexual child.
The showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and like our leadership over there has been so welcoming to like my like not at all secret gay agenda. And so like I feel like let's have these 2 characters kiss. Let's in the background like I was just wherever I could just basically adding queerness to like if you see anything queer in the show. Brown family.
Worse still, as they embrace their new role as an openly political entity, Disney have steadily transitioned from Mickey Mouse to Mickey Mao, capitulating to the communist Chinese to feature their fucking films before the eternally elusive Asian audience, while removing offensive scenes and airbrushing black people out of their movie posters to assuage the sensibilities of same. Simply put, Shaniqua over there can shriek about how much she loves a puttin' propaganda in kids' cartoons, but anyone who's read the cliff notes on communism knows if Xi Jinping asked Disney to get rid of the gays, that lesbo from Buzz Lightyear would be smashing shale in a gulag by the following fucking Friday. And this is Disney's most offensive affront by far, because as I covered exhaustively in my Hollywood Was Always Red rant, good old Uncle Walt on the subject of communism was sorta, ever so slightly, profoundly fucking based!
Walt Disney speaks of Hollywood union affairs and assails communism.
I don't believe it's a political party. I believe it's an un-American thing. And the thing that I resent the most is that they are able to get into these unions and take them over and represent to the world that a group of people that are in my plant that I know are good 100% Americans are trapped by this group, and they're represented to the world as supporting all of those ideologies, and it's not so.
While the PBS Politburo will try to sell you on this all being symptomatic of the so-called Red Scare, itself a counter-propaganda term invented by academia, and that he was attempting to crush his animators for attempting to unionize by falsely labeling them commies, truth is, it's a whole bunch of bullshit. In actuality, it was Walt's animators who begged him to intercede on their behalf. See, in the early 40s, a front group known as the CSU, or Conference of Studio Unions, under the leadership of a card-carrying member of the Hollywood Communist Party, Herb Sorrell, set out to goblin up every union that weren't nailed down in Tinseltown. And their tricks were dirtier than Madonna's slatch. Implant pinkos at regular intervals all around the room during a union vote to make pro-CSU integrationists appear more numerous than they actually were, organizing boycotts of films with conservative stars such as Lana Turner or Barbara Stanwyck. They absorbed the Teamsters Union, Painters Union. Hell, they even sank their claws into the Script Readers Union, resulting in virtually every anti-communist script for damn near a decade being shit-canned on the quiet before a director could even read the damn thing. If you ever wondered why Hollywood was still spurging about Nazis and curiously quiet about communist atrocities and enslavement even 8 years after WW-DOS, now you know, and knowing is half the chattel. By the mid-fucking-40s, the CSU came a-calling for the Cartoonists Union. See, contrary to the assertion that Walt was attempting to preclude his cartoonists from organizing, they were actually already unionized. Only now Herb Sorrell and the CSU were shouting, "Get in my belly!" Around the same time, other liberal union men, such as Roy Brewer, had become keen enough to the Comintern tactics at play here that they'd persuaded the House Un-American Activities Committee to tear itself away from boofing the boond and actually hold hearings on the Hollywood Communist Party. And so Walt Disney, humble purveyor of cute mouse cartoons, became Uncle Walt, Commie Crusher.
I believed at that time that Mr. Sorrell was a communist because of all the things that I had heard and had seen his name appearing on many of the Commie Front things. My boys, my artists, came to me and told me that Mr. Sorrell, Herbert Sorrell, was
that Herbert K. Sorrell?
Herbert K. Sorrell was trying to take him over. And I told him it was a matter of principle with me that I couldn't go on working with my boys feeling I had sold them down the river to him on his say-so. And he laughed at me and told me that I was naive, I was foolish. He said, "You can't stand this strike, that I'll smear you and I'll make a dust bowl out of your place if I choose to." Well, I didn't pull my punches on how I felt, and he evidently heard that I had called them all a bunch of communists, and I believe they are. And at a meeting, he leaned over and he said, that you think I'm a communist, don't you? And I told him that all I knew was what I'd heard and what I'd seen. And he laughed and said, well, I used their money to finance my strike of 1937. And he said that he got the money through personal check of some actor, and I don't know who he didn't even name the actor.
Now, you'll be more than familiar with the revisionist counter-narrative if you attended public school. The blacklisted Hollywood 10 were persecuted for their political beliefs. This in spite of the fact that the now open KGB archives confirmed they were actually a foreign-funded body which took millions of dollars from the fucking Ruskies right up until the Berlin Wall fell, making them anything but a domestic political movement. As for Uncle Walt, for daring to shield his own animators from being a cocksock for Stalin, not to mention defending his country, he was cast as an anti-Semite in a series of stink pieces and political propaganda cartoons which originally ran in Herb Sorrell's The Picket Line newsletter and socialist newspaper The People's Weekly World, which even today remains the organ of record for the Communist Party, USA, an all too common smear for which their only evidence of his all-encompassing Nazihood is the fact that he didn't say no when Germany sent world-renowned film director Leni Riefenstahl to tour his animation studio long the fuck before the Nazis started rounding up ethnic minorities. Just like 100 other American industries the Roosevelt administration pressured to welcome German dignitaries to in hopes of achieving peace in a time of rising hostilities between FDR and the fucking fatherland. No shit, folks. That's it. The entire argument for Walt Disney being a goose-stepping National Socialist is that he obeyed his president, even as he hired black animators during segregation and employed the quite Jewish Sherman brothers to compose tunes for his fucking films. And so here we sit in 2023 with a company that calls itself Disney, now openly hand-jiving a murderous commie dictatorship to sell a few more tickets to some shitty fucking spandex movies. The company calling itself Disney ain't worthy of uttering a single syllable of the man's name. So when the next inevitable bankruptcy scare arrives, leading to the all-too predictable heartstring concerto from the media, imploring us all to remember the magic of Mickey Mouse, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and fucking Fantasia, understand one simple fact. That company died at least 3 goddamn decades ago. This pinko piece of shit is just using its logo. If you really want to save yourselves, and I think we're well aware you won't, the only correct adjustment to your failing fucking formula is more Walt, less Disney. Uncle Walt's coffin ought to be fitted with a fucking rotisserie. Hook a turbine up to that shit. You could single-handedly solve the California energy crisis and still have enough left over for an electric light parade. And hey, if you want to solve the next one, try burning Gavin Newsom's weekly supply of hair grease. I'm Razor Fist. God fucking speed.
In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."